In Seoul, the average apartment now costs more than 25 times the average annual salary. That single number puts Seoul among the least affordable major cities on the planet. It means a young worker saving every single one of their income would need a quarter of a century just to buy a home. And yet millions of people need to live there. So the question is not simply whether young Koreans can afford a home. The question is what happens to a society when they cannot, and what they do instead. According to KB real estate data, the median apartment price in Seoul crossed 900 million won, roughly 670,000 US dollars, in the early 2020s. Statistics Korea reports that the median household income sits at around 50 to 55 million won per year, which produces that devastating price-to-income ratio of more than 15 to 1 in national terms and well above 20 to 1 inside Seoul itself. The OECD tracks Korea's housing cost burden and places it among the highest in the developed world for younger age groups. A 2023 report from the Korea Housing Finance Corporation found that first-time buyers under 40 took on mortgage debt averaging over 250 million won per transaction. And between 2015 and 2022, Seoul apartment prices more than doubled, an increase that outpaced wage growth by a factor of roughly 4, according to Bank of Korea analysis. Korea's housing crisis did not arrive overnight. Several forces converged over 2 decades to produce it. First, Korea's economy is exceptionally centralized. The Bank of Korea and statistics. Korea both document that Seoul and its satellite cities in the capital region account for roughly half of the country's GDP and an even higher share of white-collar employment. Wherever the jobs are, housing demand follows. Second, Korean households have long treated real estate not merely as shelter, but as the primary vehicle for building wealth. This cultural expectation drives speculative buying that compounds price pressure beyond ordinary demand. Third, a uniquely Korean rental system called jeonse, where tenants pay a large lump sum deposit instead of monthly rent, with the landlord investing that money, pulled millions of households into leverage they had never formally taken on before. When jeonse deposits began rising nearly as fast as sale prices in the late 2010s, even renting became a high-stakes financial act. Finally, years of low interest rates following the 2008 global financial crisis made cheap borrowing available precisely when prices were already climbing, accelerating a cycle the Bank of Korea has since described as a period of excessive household debt accumulation. The human cost is visible in the data. Statistics Korea's social survey has repeatedly shown that Koreans in their 20s and 30s now rank housing as their single greatest life stressor, above employment and health. Researchers at the Korea Institute of Public Finance have linked rising housing costs directly to delayed marriage and lower birth rates, dynamics that feed into Korea's already record-low fertility rate of 0.72, as recorded by Statistics Korea in 2023. A generation is also taking on debt at a scale that constrains every other life decision. The Financial Services Commission of Korea has reported that household debt relative to GDP sits above 100%, one of the highest ratios among OECD nations. And for those who cannot manage even the deposit, a new phenomenon has taken hold. Young Koreans leaving Seoul entirely, moving to smaller cities or living in unofficial substandard accommodation known as goshewon, tiny rooms sometimes under 5 square meters, to remain close enough to work. The latter still exists. It is just that the first rung has been lifted out of reach. Korea's housing story is not uniquely Korean. London, Sydney, Vancouver, and Amsterdam have all watched the same mechanism operate. Jobs cluster, prices rise, young workers borrow more than is wise, and demographic consequences follow quietly behind. What Korea offers is a particularly sharp version of this pattern, compressed into a single dominant city, accelerated by cultural intensity, and now producing a fertility rate so low it has become a subject of global demographic concern at the United Nations. The lesson is that housing is never just about shelter. It is the mechanism by which a society transmits opportunity across generations. When that mechanism seizes, the cost is not paid at the point of sale. It is paid decades later, in empty schools and shrinking workforces, in a social contract that younger citizens quietly begin to stop believing in.